Team, do you come in? Team, do you come in? What the hell? Hudson. Hudson! Hudson, come in! Hudson! Damn it. What the hell are you? What's up YouTube? It's Raining Card Games and welcome back to Rogue Rundown. We are doing another mini-series covering another one of my personal favorite rogue decks that I like to play. For this mini-series, we are going to be covering how to play aliens. Yes, you heard me right, aliens. So, before we go ahead and jump into the video learning about the basics of the deck, how to play it, some play cards, and tech options, first, please like, subscribe, and comment down below if you enjoy this kind of content. Also, let me know what you thought of the intro skit. And as always, feel free to join us on the Discord server, follow me on Instagram, check out the merchandise shop, check out Patreon and YouTube channel memberships, and if you're doing some shopping on TCG Player, feel free to use my link down below in the description. Anyway, you guys, let's go ahead and jump right into how to play aliens. So, aliens are an interesting archetype. They've been around the game for quite a while, coming out in the GX era as a really old battle control style archetype, really revolving around manipulating your monster's attack so that you can gain advantage and get in more attacks. So, from then, it moved on to the Synchro era where, wow, now we can Synchro summon. So it got its own archetypal tuner, its own archetypal Synchro monster, and a little more swarming capability. And really, this is where its playstyle started to take form and take shape. And then a little bit later on, you would continuously get support throughout the Synchro era, and then once you get into the Pendulum era, you get one modern support card, which was really helpful. And then finally, recently in Dual Overload, you got a Link monster. But gradually, the playstyle of aliens has been evolving over time, more from a battle-orientated strategy to a Synchro spam strategy, but also throughout this time, the one thing that has more or less remained constant is this control-based strategy, which in my personal opinion is probably the most viable way to play aliens in the modern era, because obviously nowadays you have one card combos that can spam out so many monsters and stuff, and obviously an older archetype that comes back, has its roots in the GX era, may have a little bit more tough of a time competing and swarming out this many resources. So if you're thinking of what's the best way to use alien monsters, my recommendation would be to go for the control strategy, alien control. And we will be going into how you can do that later on throughout this entire video. Alright, so we talked about alien controls. Let's actually look into how that works. Essentially, aliens are a control deck. You are going to manipulate your opponent's game state in order for yourself to gain an advantage whilst keeping your opponent at a slower pace so that you can control the tempo of the game. Because if you're considering how old aliens are, and I just mentioned how they're not great at spamming as much as a more modern deck would, well, what's the best way then? You can just keep your opponent at a rate where you can keep up with them and then go above them in card advantage in order to win the game. And how do you do that? Well, one of the primary mechanics that you're using this control strategy is revolving around alien counters. So what is an alien counter or an A counter? An A counter is quite simple, a single counter that you can put on anywhere on the field. It doesn't have to be on a monster. It can also be on certain cards depending on that card's text. And some alien monsters have the effect that if they battle an opponent's monster with an A counter on it, that monster loses 300 attack and defense depending on how many A counters are on that monster. This is a relic of the GX era where it was a more battle-centric archetype, but alien counters now with more modern cards also have a control variant. And including some older cards, you can actually either take control of your opponent's monster, or you can remove them to special summon to gain advantage, or also you can also remove them in order to gain more disruptive effects to control your opponent's board. But all in all, we are using A counters to control our opponent's game state in order to take the win. Now let's go ahead and cover some of the monsters that you can find in the alien archetype. We're not going to overview the entire archetype because there are a lot of cards to cover, and not all of them you're really going to be using in your modern alien strategy, unfortunately. And that does mean most of the GX cards are not going to be focused in this video just because they're a little bit too slow for the modern game, unfortunately. But if you are interested, there are plenty of other videos online which you can check out to look into those cards. So first up, let's talk about the archetypal tuner, Alien Ammonite. It's a level 1 tuner with a very simple effect that when it is normal summon, you can special summon a level 4 or lower alien monster in your graveyard, and it is destroyed during the end phase. But that usually doesn't matter because we are using it either for a very easy synchro play, either level 4 or level 5, depending on the level of that monster that you summon from the graveyard, or you can also use it for link plays. It is essentially a free extra deck summon because it gets you board presence. Next up, let's highlight some of the level 4s that we are going to be looking at. But first, before we go into the effect monsters, I want to highlight Alien Shock Trooper. This is a vanilla monster with 1900 attack that, if all else fails, is a very good beat stick. And you have easy ways that you can incorporate tech cards that can basically turbo this card out to gain you advantage, which we'll be covering a little bit later in the video. But if anything, this is one of the targets that you can bring out with Alien Ammonite. Now let's also cover some of the alien effect monsters that are level 4. We have Alien Warrior, which is a holdout from the GX era. When it's destroyed by battle, you can place 2 alien counters on a monster your opponent controls that destroyed it. And then also, if it battles a monster with alien counters on it, that monster loses 300 attack defense depending on the number. It's an oldie but a goodie, so I would definitely consider running it as at least maybe 1 or 2 in your deck. And then a more modern one is Alien Kid, which essentially when it's on the field, place 1 alien counter or 1 A counter on all your opponent's special summon monsters. So let's say I have Alien Kid on the field and my opponent Pendulum summons a bunch of monsters, all of those get an A counter, so it's a really easy way to distribute A counters, and then it also has the battle effect with A counters as well. Now, 2 special summon monsters that I would also like to cover in the alien archetype are first up Alien Dog, which is a level 3, which when you normal summon an alien monster, you can special summon this card from the hand and place 2 A counters on any of your opponent's monsters. So you can either place 2 on 1 monster or divide them up onto 2 monsters. It's just really good swarming capability for the deck. It gives you options for synchro, for link plays, and just getting bodies on the board and distributing A counters to help your control strategy. And then another one that is an interesting card to consider is Alien Warlord. So this monster is a free special summon just if you remove 2 A counters from anywhere on the field. So let's say you summoned out your Alien Dog off of its effect and you place 2 alien counters on one of your opponent's monsters. You can remove those 2 counters and you can special summon Warlord. Warlord has a once per turn effect where you can place an A counter on all your opponent's monsters, and then you can also only control 1 of these monsters on the field at a time. So it's unfortunate you can't summon multiple, but then it also has the effect that if it battles a monster with A counters, it gets that advantage as well. So it's a really good monster that you can consider, and it also opens up the capability for level 7 or level 8 or higher synchro plays. So let's talk about some of the spell cards that you can find in the archetype, and first let's look at A Cell Recombination Device. This is one of the more modern support cards that came out for the archetype, and as a quick play spell you can activate it and send 1 monster, 1 alien monster from your deck to the graveyard and place A counters anywhere on the field up to the level that that monster is. So let's say I sent an Alien Shock Trooper from my deck to the graveyard, I can then place 4 alien counters on either my monster, my opponent's monster, or a spell card that can hold A counters, but you can only place it on 1 target, and then you can banish this card from your graveyard except for the turn that it was sent there, and you can add an alien monster to the hand. So it is really handy as a Foolish Burial, an A-counter distributor, and a Rhoda for the deck. Now, a card that can take advantage of A-counters is the quick play spell Mysterious Triangle, which, when you activate it, you destroy a monster that your opponent controls with an A-counter, at least one, and then you can special summon a level 4 alien monster from the deck, but it's destroyed during the end phase. So this can either be used to disrupt your opponent's plays. Let's say they only have one monster and it's a critical summon with an A-counter already on it. You can destroy that monster, clear their field, and disrupt their plays, and also get an alien monster out on the field for advantage. Let's say a alien kid, and if they continue to special summon, all those monsters will now get an A-counter, so you can gain advantage that way. Or if it's your turn, you can then destroy that monster on your opponent's field and summon out to extend your own plays and then go in for the victory if you have the capability to do so. Now, another spell card in the archetype that revolves around A-counters is Code A Ancient Ruins. It's a continuous spell card that, with a soft once per turn effect, you can remove 2 A-counters from anywhere on the field and special summon an alien from the graveyard. And then also, when an alien monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place an A-counter on this card. So it generates its own counters, it can take advantage of its own counters. It's a really handy card, and then comboed with some of the extra deck monsters, it can also be reused multiple times to help spam your field with monsters from the graveyard. Alright, so now let's cover some of the traps. Now, earlier in the video I mentioned taking control of some of your opponent's monsters, and you can do that through one of the cards called Brainwashing Beam. So, this is a continuous trap card that you can activate and basically target one of your opponent's monsters that has at least one A-counter on it and take control of that monster permanently until during each of your end phases, you remove one alien counter from that monster. And if that monster has no alien counters on it, you return it to your opponent. But if you have multiple counters on that monster, let's say it has 4 alien counters, 4 A counters on it, you can hold that monster for essentially 4 turns, and you can use it for whatever you want. XCs, Synchro, Link Plays, you name it. Or, if it's a really good monster that they already have, that let's say it is a Crystal Wing that they have on the field, put some counters on it, take it, use it for yourself, and take that game. So it's a really easy way to essentially crack down your opponent's monsters, but you can use that monster's effects and battle with it. Another trap card that is similar to Brainwashing Beam is Mass Hypnosis. Now, this card requires that you have to control an alien monster on the field, and then when you activate it, take control of up to 3 monsters your opponent controls with A-counters. But this card is destroyed during the end phase, so that means essentially you have that one turn to use all those 3 monsters to either go in for the kill, use them for link plays, or just deprive your opponent of essential combo resources. And then lastly, the last trap card that I want to highlight is Planet Pollutant Virus. This is a normal trap card, which all you have to do is you tribute an alien monster, destroy all monsters on your opponent's field that do not have A counters, and then from then on until the 3rd turn of your opponent's end phase, put an A counter on every single monster they summon. So it's a field nuke, and then it generates A counters. It is a really great card to consider in an alien control strategy. Now let's highlight some of the extra deck monsters that you can consider going into for this strategy. First off, let's mention the brand new card that came out in Dual Overload, Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame. This is how you do support for legacy archetypes. All it takes is 2 reptile type monsters. So all those extenders that we included, these are ways to turbo out Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame. And it has a quick effect that you can discard a monster. It doesn't have to be an alien monster, it could be any monster, and place alien counters anywhere on the field up to the level that that monster had. So if I had a level 4 Rescue Rabbit, an extra one that I didn't need, I can discard that, place 4 counters anywhere on the field. And then, if this monster were to be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon non-link reptile type monsters in your graveyard up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with alien counters, so it helps swarm the field if it is destroyed somehow. It is a very, very good support card, and it is critical in the alien control strategy. Now let's look at the archetypal synchro monster, Cosmic Fortress Golgar. So, it is very easy to summon out. Essentially, an Ammonite play equals this. You normal summon an Ammonite, get a level 4. Synchro, you now have Golgar out onto the field. And his effect is quite useful, especially in more back row heavy decks. All it does is it returns face-up spells and traps anywhere on the field return however many you wish, and then you can place alien counters wherever you want on the field up to the number returned. So let's say my opponent had 2 face-up Spell and Traps and I had a face-up Code A Ancient Runes on the field. I can return all 3 of those, and then I can place 3 alien counters on the field, and then it has the once per turn effect where I can remove 2 counters to destroy a card on the field. It is essentially clears out back row if it's face up, mind you, and then it's targeting destruction by using alien counters. And it has fairly good stats for a level 5. And also to consider, I mentioned Code A Ancient Runes earlier in the video, and then I mentioned it right now. A really cool combo that you can do with this card, which I'll highlight in the next video where we'll look at a deck profile and some interesting interactions that the deck can do, is you can use Golgar's effect to bounce it, but first you can use Code A Ancient Runes effect to revive a monster, and then Golgar can bounce that Code A Ancient Runes. You can activate it again and use that effect again. So it's a way to help dance around that once per turn clause because it's a soft once per turn. So something to keep in mind, which we will go over in the following video. Next up, another good reptile card that you may want to consider running in the extra deck is King of the Feral Imps. It's just a generic level 4 monster that you can summon out with anything. It can be 2 alien shock troopers, it can be a Kage Takage and an alien shock trooper or warrior. It just needs 2 level 4s, detach, search a reptile type monster from your deck to your hand. It is so good, you have to consider running this card in your extra deck. So now let's look into some tech cards that you may consider running in your alien strategy. First, let's talk about ways to turbo out Alien Shock Trooper. Because it's a reptile monster, it's got very great stats for a level 4, so we want to think essentially how can we get into some of our extra deck toolboxes, and some of the great ways to spam out level 4 monsters are cards like Unexpected Die, which when you don't control a monster you can special summon a level 4 vanilla from the deck, boom, instant alien shock trooper, or even better, a very powerful normal summon is Rescue Rabbit. Normal summon this, banish it, you get 2 alien shock troopers out onto the field. So you just have ways to turbo out alien shock troopers so you can get access to some of your extra deck monsters. Or also put some of your cards like Planet Pollutant Virus online. Next up, let's talk about some reptile extender cards that you may consider running in your deck. Cards like Kage Tokage are very easy because if you normal summon a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and it's a reptile. So let's say I have an alien warrior in my hand, I normal summon it, activate the effect of Kage Tokage, I can special summon it, I have an instant rank 4 play or a link play. Unfortunately it can't be used for synchro summoning, but that is totally fine. Another reptile extender that you may consider is Reptilian Lemia. So this monster is a tuner monster, and it's a special summon tuner monster that all you have to do, target a monster your opponent controls, make its attack 0, special summon this monster, and then you take damage equal to that monster's attack points. So it gives you a tuner on the field, which then you can use for synchro plays or link plays because it's also a reptile type monster. So it is very useful in dealing with high attack monsters that your opponent controls while gaining you advantage. Alright, so now that we've essentially looked at the play style, we've looked at some of the playmakers of the deck, now let's look at the pros and cons. So, let's talk about some of the downsides, because every deck has a downside. Alien control is a slower strategy, so if your opponent can set up a large amounts of negates and is extremely explosive going on their first turn, you may have a difficult time dealing with that board, because essentially you're ending on maybe 1 or 2 monsters on your field. You have some options with some synchro plays, but really your playstyle is revolving around being able to place alien counters on your opponent's monsters. Now you can slow them down with stuff like Solemn Strike and all etc, but if you're not able to establish your back row, so a lot of back row hate can hurt this deck, like Cosmic Cyclone, Twin Twisters, Lightning Storm, these cards can hurt. But also having your monster's effects negated and preventing you from reaching stuff like M-Frame or distributing counters can also cripple your strategy. So you do have to be very conscious of back row removal and just board breaking capability. But that being said, if you can deal with those kind of stuff, like with an infinite impermanence or something, just to deal with problematic monsters and being able to distribute A counters to use your cards to essentially clear out their field, it can be very potent, but you just have to be very mindful of these kind of negation and back row hate. Another con to the deck is it can be normal summon reliant. So you do have some ways to special summon out monsters, but a lot of times your normal summon in the deck can be critical if you're trying to establish a board. So if your opponent is able to negate that normal summon or basically shut down your plays, let's say they shut down your Ammonite effect or they shut down your Rescue Rabbit, you may be up the creek without a paddle. So you have to be mindful of what you're playing around, and then also be mindful that your normal summon can be a very critical choke point. Now let's talk about some of the pros though, because this deck is fun to play. Now, it is by no means a top tier meta strategy. This is more on the lines of casual rogue, but if you have a good enough build, you can be able to compete and slow down some higher tier strategies. It just depends on how well you know the deck and how well you can pilot it. But this deck is so much fun because A, you are able to disrupt your opponent at critical times. So with stuff like Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame, with his effect being a quick effect, you can distribute alien counters. So going first, even if you just have one monster and a lot of back row, you're able to easily disrupt plays, so you can hit times at the let's say they have a very critical normal summon, you're able to either take control of that monster yourself and gain advantage that way and bring out monsters that you wouldn't normally been able to bring out just using the monsters in your main deck. So using your opponent's monsters to your advantage to then get some very impressive extra deck monsters is a very handy thing. It's essentially, the deck has crackdowns on steroids. So it's a great way to basically alien control. It's amazing. You just take control of your opponent's monsters. It's great. Wow. No, anyway, but enough of me a little rambling about that. Another great thing is that it doesn't die to 2 money hand traps that contribute. So obviously Kaiju's hurt, but you don't have to worry about Nibiru or Sphere mode. Now, Nibiru right now is being phased out in the current meta state because Adamantipator's are easily able to dance around it, and then a lot of meta strategies are now adapting their strategies to get a negate by the 5th summon. So Nibiru you don't have to worry about as much, and then for Raw Sphere mode, you're normally ending on a 1 to 2 monster board, so you don't have to worry about your monsters going away to the effect of a Sphere mode. Now, Kaijus are still a thing, but you still have back row that can help slow down your opponent. And that is going to do it for our part 1 introduction into how to play aliens. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is one of my favorite decks that I've been playing around with recently, and honestly it's becoming one of my favorites of all time now. Just playtesting with the deck, tweaking ratios, and just trying to find the most optimum build for this archetype. It is so much fun to play around. And then also, I got pretty creative with the intro for this one, and then the following video also, if you guys really like the intro, tune in for the next one as well. So I don't know, I just have so much fun with this archetype, both on the dueling field and then just in the creative YouTube corner. It's just so much fun. And let me know down below in the comments what you think of the deck. Anyway, I will catch you guys in part 2, where we're going to go over a basic alien deck profile and some combo interactions that you can use with the cards. I'm going to catch you guys in the next video.